we want to continue looking at the layers palette. This time around we want to look at some of the tools along the bottom of the layers palette. And the first thing is we're going to go from right to left once again. And the first thing we can do here is we can see that we can, in the right corner, change the size and the length of the layers palette. Okay. Then we have the standard Adobe interface with the trash can that lets us throw away layers. We have next to it we can the new layer icon, and we can either create a blank layer by clicking it, and there you see a blank layer, and I can drag it down to the trash can and toss it. Okay. Or I can drag an existing layer and duplicate that layer and everything that's on that layer down to the page icon, and there you see we now have a copy of the duck. And once again, I will throw that away. Here I'm going to make a copy of the dune. There you see it. And I'm going to use this a little bit later on, but I'm going to go to my Move tool, turn on my Transformation tools, and make this other copy of the dune a little bit smaller. Double click inside, or else hit my Return key. I'm also, so we can easily see it, I'm going to go to Image Adjustments here, and I'm just going to go to Hue and Saturation and change the color of that second little dune image, and it'll be permanently changed. And there you see it. We'll just put that back there for just a second. Okay, and so we now have that extra copy, and I'll turn off my transformation tools. The next thing that we have down at the bottom here is a folder, and they call it a group. And we can create a folder, and I'll just click on it, and you see there that we have a new little layer, but it's actually a folder. And then I can drag images into on top of that folder, and now they are inside that folder. And quite often, if you want a variety of different variations on images, instead of duplicating them one at a time, I may very well just put them in a folder, and then I can duplicate that entire folder. And so there you have, you see, now I've got two complete copies of those images. So again, that's a pretty nifty little tool. I'm going to throw one of these away, drag it down to the trash, and there you see it's now gone. The next tool that we have here almost looks like a little half moon, and this has to do with an adjustment layer. An adjustment layer. And it's a terrific set of tools. You may remember just a minute ago I went up here in the main menu, and I went to the adjustments. Let me pick an image here, and I went up here to the adjustments, and you see that we have a variety of these different things that affect the color and affect the image in a variety of ways. And the deal, however, here is that if you make an adjustment from up here in the main menu, it is permanent. What I mean by that is I'll go up to Hue and Saturation again, and here I'll make a change to the duck, and I'll say OK. Well, if I decide to go back and I want to readjust that or undo that, I would have to have the image open and use the history to undo it, or Command Z, or I might have had to make a copy of the image and turned it off and left the copy unaltered. Because if I go back here to Adjustments, Hue and Saturation, you see that the tool is now back to 0, back to square one. So you really cannot undo this, okay? And that's where an adjustment layer can become a pretty handy object. And here's how that works. We can click this little icon right here, again, the half moon. And it's a little pull down menu here. And again, I will go to hue and saturation. And what we get is the same dialog box that we had a minute ago, except that this one is going to allow us a great deal more flexibility. And here's how it works. Notice once again there's changing the duck, but notice something that at first seems like a problem and we've got a fix for it. Notice that it's not only changing the color of the duck, but it's changing all of the other layers as well. Notice the dune in the background. They are also changing color. And so what happens with an adjustment layer is it changes or adjusts all of the layers below it. It's sort of like having a spotlight, you know, on a stage. You can put a, let's say, a color gel in front of the spotlight, and it changes everything that it shines on. And that's sort of the way the adjustment layer works. So, you know, if you want to affect all of the layers, that's great. But there is a fix to make it affect or apply only to certain layers on your canvas. In this case, I want to apply it to my duck. And there's a lot to understand and see here. But notice also, I want to point out that the adjustment layer shows up as its own layer. And in fact, what it is a form of a layer mask. The word mask and layer masks are used in a variety of ways within Photoshop. So I'm purposely just trying to raise your awareness of some terminology and some things that we're going to come back to in a little bit later video. And it's really a layer mask. And I can turn it off. It's like turning off that that color gel in front of the spotlight, and you see that the image returned to normal. I can turn it on again, and where it's pretty cool is I can go and readjust it, and look, my hue and saturation is still set to where I put it. Remember, a few minutes ago I did it from the main menu, and when you went back to the hue and saturation, it was back to 0. So you weren't really able to undo it per se without just sort of guessing. But here it stays editable, essentially. And so if I want, I can, you see, bring it right back to 0, and I'm right back to where I started from. And that's the great thing. So once you know how to fix this little deal where we can isolate it to just one of the layers instead of it affecting all the layers, we have the best of both worlds. So let me leave that there and say OK. And here's what you need to do. We need to attach the layer mask, or this adjustment layer, to just the duck. And we do that in one of two ways. We can either go up in the main menu and say Layer, Layer, create a clipping mask. Create a clipping mask. And by doing that, look what just happened. We've changed the color of the duck, but now the background images, the dunes, have gone back to the way they were before we added the adjustment layer. Okay? So it's now affecting only the duck. And there are a couple of things going on. We know it's clipped or attached to the duck because it's now, notice, it's indented and it has this little arrow here, right here above my cursor, indicating that it's clipped or attached to just the duck layer. You see there? So we can clip it to the duck by going up under the main menu, create clipping mask, or there's another shortcut, and that is I can put my cursor right between the two layers, and when I press the option PC Alt, notice I get this little tool that pops up. I'm right between the two layers, and I press my option Alt, click it, and once again there's the little arrow. It's indented above the duck, and in fact you can see very easily that it's now only affecting the duck and not the background dune images. And there you have it. A very powerful set of tools, and you can have a lot of flexibility and achieve an awful lot of different kinds of effects. We're going to continue with the bottom of the layers palette in the upcoming videos, and so we'll take a look at those as we go. Stay tuned.